Hi, my name is Jaydeep Korde. I'm the CEO of Launchnodes, and we provide investment-grade Ethereum staking for solo and independent stakers. I'm lucky enough today to have Adam, one of the co-founders of the SSV protocol, with me, and we're going to use this time to try and explore and understand SSV and why it's such a useful tool for those who are in the Ethereum staking business and interested in Ethereum staking, and also to get Adam's thoughts on the ecosystem more broadly, and to give us an explainer in general about why SSV is so great. And I think it is great. And as Launchnodes, who are a node operator, part of the SSV network, I think we feel that this sort of publicizing about what SSV is about and talking to Adam is going to be useful to our customers and the broader community. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Let's start off with the basics, I suppose. So SSV stands for a shared secret validator.
Correct.
Like, what is that, and why does it help those who are wanting to stake Ethereum to have a shared secret validator?
Perfect. So just a bit about the technology and maybe who we are as a DAO, both as a DAO as a company. So secret shared validators is a technology that allows the distribution of a validator key between non-trusting operators. It's basically a decentralized protocol for empowering different companies, different teams, builders to create decentralized, trustless staking solutions. Right now on Ethereum, that's our main focus. That's how we got started in this industry many years ago, and in the future, potentially in other protocols as well. So this is sort of the framework that we are building in SSV.network. We started working on this technology 2 years ago. Originally was a research piece by the Ethereum Foundation. We saw this research piece. We immediately understood that this is going to be one of the cornerstones for the future of Ethereum and the future of staking. And we worked on a POC. There was a working group back then. We created the POC alongside a few researchers from the foundation. And then we decided to create a full-blown protocol out of it. There's a lot of work involved in building sort of a decentralized protocol and a security layer for Ethereum, and it's already 2 years in the making, and I think it will be launched fully on mainnet in the next 6 months or so. In the team, we are also running a staking solution in the background called block staking. So the core team behind block staking is also the core team behind SSV.network. But obviously SSV.network is a decentralized and open source protocol. Hence it is governed and controlled by a DAO. So we are fully focused on going through a sort of a decentralized route, making sure this is obviously eventually a public good that is used by many companies, Launchnodes hopefully as well. And so this is kind of more or less our journey. We've been in crypto in the past for already 6 or 7 years. We are very experienced in building high throughput, scalable blockchain infrastructure. And obviously we have a lot of experience with Ethereum staking per se. And yeah, this is generally us.
And so, Adam, you talked about your origins being from a research perspective, and you guys started off as a research perspective with the Ethereum Foundation.
Correct.
That, I think, frames you in what I would class as two things. One is, the sort of pedigree of your work, and you're working kind of at a deep level into the Ethereum protocol to build out of it. But secondly, the value of SSV, I think it's hard for you guys to make it easy for simple folk to understand. And so I kind of want to use this time to sort of frame up a level to why you talked about it being an important, and you immediately saw an opportunity and something about SSV and in terms of that, making the validator key something that can be shared and split as really important. What's that about? What did you see way back then? And what is the value of having a shared secret validator key?
Right. So there's a lot of different components that go into taking a validator key, splitting it up, distributing that validator key between non-trusting nodes with different setups. So you can create a setup with different clients, which obviously is a huge concern right now in the industry. Client concentration, client distribution, different companies, obviously, different geolocations, and this goes on. So you can really create a distributed, fault-tolerant security layer behind your validator, which is super important. It obviously reduces the risk.
I think. Sorry.
That's my next sentence. So obviously, it reduces the risk of slashing, which is a huge concern in the industry. When you stake your ETH in what we call sort of a low risk, low reward environment, you want to make sure you're absolutely protected against any harm that might come to you from the protocol itself, from the company that you're using to stake your ETH with. So there's fault tolerance involved, obviously slashing protection, and uptime. So if you have, let's say, a setup of 4 different nodes operating your validator, instead just the one node or the one company, now you have a situation in which if one node goes down, the rest of the nodes continue to operate. So under the hood, there are a lot of advantages to using something like DVT, obviously, or SSV, which is kind of a synonym to SSV. So SSV equals DVT. And I think it'll be super interesting to explore sort of a story of 2 companies. So Launchnodes and block staking, right? Both of us created a non-custodial staking solution, right? We worked very, very hard on making sure that it is non-custodial and it's completely secure for our users. And we are kind of detached from, the validator key, which is sort of a risky component in the framework of stake. And we put a lot of, time, efforts, energy in creating that backend. With something like DVT, it'll be plug and play. I mean, you won't need to consider a lot of your DevOps work. You won't need to consider how do I create the right strategy in order to custody a validator key in the right way, or create sort of a remote signer to make sure it's securely stored with your user. You'll have something like DVT you can plug into, and sort of your backend is completely up and running and operational, almost with a click of a button. So we kind of look at it as sort of an AWS for staking, right? Before AWS, every tech company used to have their own server rack, their own cooling system, a DevOps team behind that. It's very costly. It's a huge pain in the ass. And in order to create sort of a web 2 application, it's the cost behind it was staggering. But then AWS came and kind of changed the game completely, so everybody could create a web app with a click of a button. This is the way we see it. A good example would be a great team like Rocket Pool, which took many years to build a decentralized staking protocol. And I'm not saying anything bad about Rocket Pool. They're an amazing team. We're definitely admirers, but I think that the next Rocket Pool will be built in a month or 2 months, because you have an enabling technology like DVT. And that's where we ultimately want to get to. We want the entire ecosystem to be as decentralized as possible, and that will be possible thanks to a technology like DVT. And we want different teams and builders to be able to spin up different staking use cases and applications using our protocol.
Adam,
so
you've talked.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that's the framework of it.
You've talked about DVT. We explained what a shared secret validator is. Could you explain to us what DVT is for the non-technical and newbie? What do those words stand for?
Right. So DVT is similar to SSV. SSV, basically, when we started the work group, the technology used to be called SSV, and then we spinned out SSV.network out of that work group, and the original terminology was then coined as the official terminology, was then coined as DVT, and that stands for Distributed Validator Technology. Secret shared validator, distributed validator technology. It's different nerdy names to describe the.
No. We just the whole point of this is not to get lost down a rabbit hole. And
just to clarify the terminology for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's thanks for doing that. It's
one small addition to that. If we go to, there was a tweet by Vitalik Buterin, I think it was a few months ago, where he updated his roadmap to completing ETH2. Right now, it's not ETH2 anymore, but let's call it ETH2 for simplicity. And on top of it, there is a mentioning of DVT. So that's exactly the technology we are working on.
Got it. One of the analogies that I'm often making about like running your own node and independently staking, as opposed to the staking outcome of 5%, 4%, 15%, is that independent staking, solo staking, is like owning a car in a world in which roads are being built. And for the purposes of staking, those roads look like new financial services and products around staking. I think that SSV and distributed validator technology is a big part of that ecosystem of these new financial services and technology. Do you agree? And if so,
that's a very interesting analogy. So just to ride on that sort of train of thought, let's say that running your own validator would be like having your own car on the Ethereum highway. Applying something like DVT would be similar. And why is it your own car? Because you have the keys, right? The validator key, the withdrawal keys are with you. You're running the validator, you're in control, you're driving the car, right? Applying something like DVT would be similar to still owning the car, but then getting a driver, right? You drive your own car, the keys are with you, but you have a driver carries you forward and kind of guides you through the highway and make sure you're not bumping into anything. And keeps you safe, but again, the keys are with you, and the ownership of the car is your own. So this is sort of to complete that train of thought.
And potentially also then ends up being that a case of, well, if your car does crash, you can just get into another one that's provided through.
Yeah, maybe you have a fleet of cars. Yeah, you have like, I don't know, exactly. Or a tank for that matter. So then you don't crash.
And so using the sort of analogy piece, in terms of the evolving nature of the space we work in, right? It's a challenge because Rocket Pool was a great innovation at its time, but I'm sure they would also know that their concepts are evolving, and they are in this space in general. What are you most excited about in terms of the use cases? You've talked about the fact that with DVT and with the SSV protocol, you've got this idea of you've made staking easy, and you've made it safer by distributing it across a whole bunch of different operators who are experts, right? So now
I'll just correct it. We make building decentralized staking applications easy. I mean, ultimately, we're not a staking protocol. It's a very important distinction. We're not a staking company. Our goal is not to tell people, come here and stake your ETH with us. Our goal is to bring builders to build applications for them to go then to the end user. And to get like Ethereum deposits and stakers to use their product.
Well, that's great actually, because in that correction, it leads into the next point I was going to ask you is that what are those applications that you're excited about and that you see coming from making building easier, through DVT? What's got you excited in that ecosystem you're supporting?
Good question. So we actually recently launched a new website. Eran, who was on the call earlier on, orchestrated that effort, and it's a pretty awesome website. One of the core features that we added into our website is a developer center, and in that developer center, you can tap into a use case page. So then you can toggle between different use cases, and that's eventually the core of what we do. So let's start from the more obvious go-to use case that a lot of the companies are looking at right now, which is decentralized Ethereum staking pool. There are a lot of staking companies like Launchnodes and others that are looking to sort of create an offering which is similar to, I don't know, a Rocket Pool or a Lido, with distinct features of being built on something like SSV, right? So they're going to spin up a service using our protocol and using our network, and sort of the front end will still be an Anchor or Swell or Rockex or whoever it is that will build those applications on top of our protocol, and that's already in progress. There are teams, like I mentioned a second ago, like Swell, like Anchor, like Stater Labs. They're already applying for grants and starting to build those use cases. Now, moving forward, what we think or what we envision for the protocol and generally for Ethereum staking is that right now there's a lot of ETH that is sort of serving as TVL or being locked in different DeFi protocols and bridges that is currently not being staked. One of the reasons I think that bridges and DeFi applications cannot tap into staking natively is because, again, if you sort of want to keep your tech stack completely decentralized, it's a bit hard to do if you are relying on a third party, which is not decentralized, right? But if you have a protocol which offers you a decentralized backend and a sort of plug and play solution to offer staking services to your end users, then you can sort of combine Ethereum staking, decentralized Ethereum staking, and DeFi or bridges. So a bridge like Polygon, for example, might benefit greatly out of that. You'll be able to lock your ETH in Polygon, and that ETH will generate yield, and then you'll also be able to use that the bridge ETH in, I don't know, DeFi sort of applications, or whatever solutions or applications you'll have on the other side of the bridge. Obviously, there are a lot of technological aspects that need to be covered in order for that to be offered to the end user. But I think that's ultimately where Ethereum staking is going, and that's what we are going to enable as a technology, as a protocol.
That's really interesting, and I'm almost keen to make sure I understand it. And again, using analogies helps. The idea that you have a whole bunch of lending, money market activity, trading and arbitrage activity happening in DeFi. Ethereum, which is obviously a huge, the underlying network that is enabling a lot of this, and staking right now are not able to kind of connect. Whereas
not natively, obviously there are solutions you can apply, like Rocket Pool and RETH and STETH, which are great.
Sure.
But I think from the discussions at least that we had, a lot of sort of DeFi protocols out there and bridges are very protective of their TVL, and they want to adhere to the core sort of attributes and beliefs of the Ethereum ecosystem is continuing to be as decentralized as possible. And for that, they need an alternative. And maybe to the ability to build something in-house, or to empower their own builder community to create, staking applications that are bridge-based. So this is sort of, where we see things going.
And just talk to the complexity of that for the builder community. Is that you've got a component part which is understanding the decentralized piece and ensuring the infrastructure and stuff works. And then there's actually the financial piece of like, what is the context of how you make money? What's the utility of the application on the bridge when I want to borrow money, or I've got excess money I want to put into a money market to earn an interest rate? So you've got these dual,
it's very complicated for sure.
These dual contexts that you have to kind of manage. And who's building the bridges to help that understanding and make that simpler in your mind? Or how do you make it simple?
So I don't think it'll be simple in the beginning. A very basic example. So one of the core complexities of doing this kind of thing at this point in time is the fact that, and I didn't mention that earlier on. Did you lose me? Okay, video popped for a second. So one of the complexities involved right now, and I didn't mention that earlier on, is the fact that we are still in the testnet phase. So obviously, if you want to, sorry, my camera just got out of whack for some reason. So obviously, if you want to apply this kind of solutions to, huge TVL stores like, I don't know, an Aave or a Polygon, obviously you need to see a running real life infrastructure in place that you can test and then apply for your own protocol. So this is the first hurdle that we are seeing right now.
TVL, Adam, for those who don't know what TVL is?
Total value locked. So that's the amount of value that is being locked inside the protocol. So let's say you're using Polygon, you're locking your ETH at one side of the bridge, and then you're getting ETH on the other side of the bridge, and that ETH is connected to the Polygon ecosystem. So you're able to use it in a cheaper, faster way. With all of the Polygon attributes, and that locked ETH in Polygon is considered their TVL, so total value locked inside the Polygon ecosystem, for example.
And why is TVL so important as a metric in DeFi? Like, what does it indicate if the TVL is really high versus the TVL being really low?
Right. So it's sort of a way to signal out sort of the strength of your protocol and how many people are using it. I'll give you an example, and that's kind of something you see a lot in TradFi. So a lot of companies boost their the amount of deposits they have if you're a bank, for example, right? And obviously, once you have TVL or users and a certain amount of ETH or whatever tokens that are being locked in your own protocol, you can build a lot of use cases out of that. So if you have liquidity, obviously you can have trading, and you can have lending and borrowing, and if you have a bridge that's that aggregates a lot of ETH, then it's interesting for a lot of use cases to plug into that bridge, like Aave or Uniswap or whatever it is. They won't go to a bridge which have $10 million in TVL because it won't be interesting for their users. There'll be nothing to do there. But if they have, I don't know, like a Polygon that have billions of dollars in TVL, then obviously an integration to Polygon will make a lot of sense for all of the Polygon users, and so on and so forth. So TVL is super important. I think it's a bit overrated, but it's still extremely important in the context of DeFi and bridges and obviously the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole.
One of the things I'm hoping to do over the course of getting to talk to yourself and your team in this public format is to try and explain all of these different terms and almost build a grand unified theory of, like, what does decentralization mean? What does it mean for a protocol to have liquidity? And why does that incentivize bridges? And also then to understand what DVT and the SSV protocol is in that ecosystem, because I think it's not really understood. And so when people do understand, they can understand what they can build and focus on the opportunities that are relevant to a context that they might know and want to build value from.
100%. So going back to it, just to add a point to that, I mentioned if you have TVL, it's interesting for different builders and applications to build use cases on top of your protocol, and for you to offer additional services like Aave offering a stable coin, for example, and the list goes on. Obviously, one of the things that they can also do is offer Ethereum staking. And if they want to do it in a native, decentralized way, that kind of respects the Ethereum ethos and obviously their users' security, and obviously the staking performance or their staked Ether performance, then obviously something like DVT will make a lot of sense for those protocols. So this is sort of to build up on your point.
Scrolling back up a little bit, in our world, there's an assumption in some ways that Ethereum is going to be the new fabric of the global economy, right? We haven't said that. That's not on our website, but it's certainly what we think. Do you think one, do you think that? I shouldn't put words in your mouth. And secondly, the other bit is that what are the embedded assumptions in that around our ecosystem? Does that question make sense?
So you're asking if I think that Ethereum is going to be sort of the future economy, global economy.
Yeah, it's going to be a tool for the core. It's going to be a kind of a tool for the global economy to allow a whole new set of financial services to exist without intermediaries, or with new intermediaries and new services and new opportunities. And the stuff we're both doing in terms of us trying to create as many different participant, independent solo stakers as possible on cloud, on their own infrastructure. You're creating technology to allow people to build on top of that apps and services. There is an inherent assumption in that, right? And I'm trying to get to what are those assumptions?
Obviously we kind of share the vision of Ethereum becoming bigger and a lot more important in our lives, and a huge part of the global economy. We are only in the beginning. Definitely, this is definitely the early stage. The infrastructure, the building blocks are only now being put together. My background is more from TradFi and fintech, and I know the problems that exist in that framework and in that world, and that was my main appeal to kind of jump over to crypto and do something interesting in crypto a few years back. So I do think this is where we're heading, and right now there is, again, I'm not sure exactly what type of use cases and what type of applications and what type of uses will eventually come through as the winners. Maybe it'll be a lot, maybe it'll be predominantly NFTs or something of sorts. I'm not a huge fan, but who knows? So we still have a lot to prove, and we're still trying out a lot of things. People need to remember that this is still an experiment. So what I think, you mentioned what should be the sort of the main assumptions that we take in order for that future to happen. I think that a lot of people are right now concentrating around making it faster, right, and making it cheaper and making it more accessible, which is hugely important. But what we are focusing on, and I think this is not a discussion that is being made, at least not across the board in the Ethereum ecosystem, is how to make it more secure and how to make sure it continues to be decentralized and fair for everyone. So this is sort of our focus as DVT. We kind of see ourselves as layer 0 for the Ethereum ecosystem. That's the layer that is in charge of protecting layer 1. And we want to make that layer 0 as decentralized and as fair and as open as possible. Right now, if you look at the Ethereum ecosystem, most of the ETH is being staked with, I think, 10, maybe less major staking solutions out there, Lido and Kraken and others. They're all great, but I think it should be more distributed, it should be more open. People should find it easier to compete, and that's what we want to enable. So we want to focus on the security layer to make sure that future that you are envisioning will actually happen, and will actually happen the way we want to construct it and the way we think it should come to play.
And that decentralization, why in your mind is it bad for there to be 10 really great new HSBCs or Citibanks that are in crypto that are doing staking for you? Why do we care so much about decentralization? What does it mean? It gets bandied around as a word the whole time. Oh, let's decentralize. Right. But what and coming from a traditional finance background, similarly, what do we know, and why do we care so much about decentralization? It'd be great to get your view on that.
Right. So we're all familiar with the term "too big to fail," and if you have huge banks or huge swaths of value being locked in the hands of small group of powerful people, that inherently creates vulnerabilities in a system. I'll give you an example. What happened with Celsius, for example, was and they're not the epiphany of decentralization, but it's a good example of a cascading effect of a lot of value and a lot of trust being put in the hands of a small group of people, and when that small group of people goes astray, or when the market goes against them, or something bad happens along the way, maybe it's a disgruntled employee or whatever it is, then there is a cascading effect that kind of might blow up an entire industry, or at least affect it in a very significant way. And when you have a more decentralized system or ecosystem, essentially if one component of that ecosystem goes down or is jeopardized in any way, it doesn't affect the rest of the participants in that network, which is extremely important. So a lot of people are looking at Lido, for example, as a sort of a sore point of potential centralization in our ecosystem. And I have nothing bad to say about Lido. I think they're an awesome team and we work closely with them. But when you have 30+% of the ETH at stake with one service, obviously there are a lot of concerns that go with that.
And they've been very good about being open about those concerns.
Is that okay if we make like a 1-minute break? I'm running out of battery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
well, actually, we can wrap up now. I think we've covered a lot of content. I don't think
no problem. Sorry about that. I'm in a vacation here in Italy, so I'm a bit like not super plugged in. Yeah. The
final point I wanted to ask you about, which is a cheap shot, so you probably want to cover it quickly, is that it easier building in a crypto winter as it's described, or harder?
This is our, I think, like third winter. We are very good at preparing ourselves for a winter, and we don't get too much affected by it. So I think the company, as our employees, our growth plans, our spend budget, and so on and so forth, nothing major changed. I think generally the answer is yes. So it's easier to build in a bear market because there's a lot more talent available. But I think the bear market here, in our case at least, has a caveat, which is the merge, where a lot of the brilliant minds of Ethereum are kind of focused on making sure we do that successfully, and we go through that successfully, and including our team at Block Staking, now in SSV.network. I think once we get past that, if you combine the bear market and the talent that will be available for everyone, to tap into. And obviously the shift in focus from the merge to other projects like DVT and other applications in the Ethereum protocol, then essentially it will make it even more easy and appealing for builders to come in and join the SSV effort. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
That's great.
All in all, it's a pretty rosy picture, and we are kind of we're super optimistic.
Yes, and I think that's also a good message to take out to the world, that those who are building in the ecosystem, all of us are very optimistic and focused on getting over the hump that is the merge. And I think that could be the next topic that we cover. Perhaps your thoughts and SSV's view of a post-merge world could be the next topic for our discussion. I will let you go back to enjoying the delights of Italy. Thanks very much for your time, Adam. And
thank you for having us.
No, that's great.
I look forward to working with you guys in the future. And yeah, take care.